So, I speaking of last week's episode, we talked a little bit about just what you're saying right now. You know how we kind of get in our own way because we're holding on to like the idea of perfectionism or fear of failure, which the remedy for that was failing forward and failing as often as you possibly can, right? So that you can extremely go ahead of that learning curve. And then another thing that we talked about was resistance. I want to hear your ideas on what we when we experience resistance, what's really going on and how do we remedy that?
So like in resistance in what way?
So I have a theory. Okay, so good question. So I have a theory that resistance is a function of like this mechanism that wants to an internal mechanism that kind of wants to keep us safe and wants to keep us in our comfort zone, and then when we do venture out to go do something that is a little bit different, or when we are trying to reach our higher selves, for some reason there's like a little bit of resistance that kicks in, and it makes us want to procrastinate. It makes us
Yeah.
want to do things that are like almost self-sabotaging.
Yeah. I mean, so to me, resistance is fear. That's it. I mean, I think resistance is fear. And and look, humans are remarkable beings. Like we can tell ourselves, and I curse, and I apologize for cursing. I'm about to curse, but like we can tell ourselves all kinds of shit, and we believe it, right? Because it's so much easier to believe it. Think about childhood trauma, whatever. We tell ourselves these own inner monologues, narratives to make ourselves feel better, right? So often the time. And I think you just have to call BS on yourself, right? I think that's the way to do it. So let's really go through. I'm resistant, or I've got fear of fill in the blank. What is it, right? And I think if you can go through and first accept that, like no one else is really going to care, right? And like you're going to be embarrassed, but like you that's part of your process. And most great successes are off the back of some big failure, right? Almost every time.
Yeah.
Once you get comfortable with that, you can really, start analyzing it that, okay, let's throw the emotional piece out. Someone's going to care, whatever. Then break it down to what your risk factor is. It's like maybe putting $1,000 to get a logo design, you don't have that money. So that maybe it isn't the logical step because like what, then play it out. Let's say it doesn't work. Well, then I lose $1,000. Like, well, okay, let's dig down. What happens if that happens? I can't pay my mortgage. Well, then that's probably a step too far because you're not there yet, right? So then the step needs to be like, hey, I need to go and get a side hustle to go through and earn this $1,000 where it can be throwaway money. I don't know, but that's a reasonable thing. That I think is where fear and resistance is meeting logic and circumstance. If you have that, then reassess it. But if it's solely this tangential, emotional theory that you're telling yourself, you're just fucking lying. Just like that doesn't matter. If there's not an actual outcome like that, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I'm kind of happy you said that because I didn't want I was afraid that when we were speaking about our forward movement towards risk, that people would think that we just throw caution to the wind. I'm sure it's calculated. However, you are someone who is willing to take a lot more risk than the average person. So for this group of individuals who rightfully so are risk averse, how would you kind of help us frame our minds around taking more risk in addition to what you just mentioned?
Yeah. I mean, I think risk is a good thing because it's going to, because just like we talk about not necessarily having a plan, play out those scenarios, pros and cons of like what happens, right? So let's go to an extreme and I'll back it up. Like, I want to start this business and I want to go all in.
Mhm.
And that's what I think I want to do. I think I want to just go all in. I want to tell my boss I want to resign. I don't like him anyway. And I want to go and build this thing. Right.
Mhm.
Well, pros and cons. Are you a single person, right? Or do you have a family? Okay. You have a family. Well, now you've got a whole other list of things that are problems, right? That are concerns. Do we have food? Like, are you able to supply and support for that family? And if you reach that, well, like if this happened and it didn't work, my life is going to be, fundamentally like catastrophically worse.
Right.
That's too far. Then back it up into like, what is it that can, make you a little uncomfortable, but that isn't the end of the world. And then take that first kind of step. I think that's it. But anything that you can do to make yourself a little uncomfortable is going to be better than doing nothing. And I think that's what I guarantee you there's going to be, 100 listeners that have out there that have had this idea, that have thought about it, gone through, and they hear someone else, oh, I had that idea 10 years ago. Well, you didn't do anything.
Right.
And someone's action has beaten you to that, right? So just take that small step. It's liberating, and it could be the wrong idea. And okay, fine, it's okay. Maybe it'll be a good idea in a year, or that leads you to the next idea.
Right.